What else did you want to get off your chest, my friend?
What I wanted to talk about today is the relationships, like the aspect of the male-female dynamic, actually. That's what I wanted to talk about.
Sure. Everyone should just be good flirts, because what you're really doing when you're flirting with a woman is that you're actually letting her know, despite of her imperfections, that you still like her.
Like the more dates that you go to, the more people that you talk to, you get less needy, obviously, because you know there's like different people that you can connect with.
And I do get what you're saying about like coffee dates and stuff like that. So check this out, all right? I'm gonna tell you a story. I'm glad we went here because I'm gonna tell you a story. I would prefer to get coffee and just have like a conversation with them. Maybe see if you connect, maybe see how the conversation
And
goes.
do you wanna invest $200 in a girl that you don't know? Like, I would never do that.
Well, I would argue that, man, because
I like coffee dates or bowling dates or pool or going to the bar, have a few drinks, get to know each other better without any prior like expectations.
So I just announced on my story that we're gonna do 2 episodes.
Not one, but 2.
No, that's
You
that's
how it
didn't
works.
really have to say that. I'm probably self-explanatory. But the reason for doing 2 episodes is that we want to pick up the volume, the sheer volume of what we're doing, because what I like to say is I want to fail faster so that we can get better, right? We want to fix our mistakes, not just our mistakes, but we want to make the quality better as far as editing, the way we speak. You know, I want kind of like, I've been looking at a lot of videos on how to speak more eloquently, like how to articulate your thoughts better, what you're thinking through your mind, and a lot of it is reading and writing on a journal. I think that's very, very important. And you know what I was thinking about? Like, so this is random, but what I was thinking about was, you know, like you as your English as your second language.
Right.
I was thinking, right, because I also have a friend and she speaks Spanish, and the crazy thing is that I was trying to convince her to do like social media stuff and, you know, do those voiceovers, kind of like, okay, she's doing like a lifestyle blog and where she's getting dressed up, one of those, you know, kind of like TikTok-ish,
Like
kind
cosplay?
of loop, not cosplay, but loop videos where it keeps going and going and going.
Right.
But then she's like, it's more like a fashion page, right? And the thing is I was telling her like, hey, you should do a voiceover to like explain what you're doing. You know, it's like, oh yeah, I wake up in the morning, and then, you know, just narrate over your video. Because I think you'd build a better following just because, you know, it's like storytelling, right?
In Spanish, though?
No.
English?
So that's where I was getting at, is that she has a Spanish accent.
Oh.
And I think what I was picking up from her, that I think she's kind of shy. Not that she's like embarrassed of it. It's just she's shy to do it.
Right.
Because I think she's scared to like kind of have people criticize her for, you know, like her accent and stuff like that. And I told her, I was like, wait a minute, like I think that would be cute actually.
Right.
You know, like it makes it a lot better when someone has an accent, especially if obviously you're a girl and you're doing like these fashion lifestyle videos. Yeah, I think a lot of people would like resonate with that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, this country was built on immigrants, right? At the end of the day, like your parents, they moved from the Philippines and they try to give you a better life, right? So
yeah, but where I was getting at was like, okay, so when we're articulating, when we're trying to I don't think it's the accent isn't the problem, right? Like you have an accent, but it's the way that you articulate yourself from what you're thinking to what you're speaking. It's not because you have a really thick accent, no one could understand like what you're saying, which is completely false. But I think a lot of people that their English is a second language, they're like self-conscious about. Would that be true a little bit? Like when you first started speaking English, would you say that's true?
Right. When I first moved to the US, like 2018, like I didn't know the mannerisms, right? Like how people react to certain situations. And then over time, obviously, like that faded away drastically on my experience. When I was first living in LA, I had Turkish roommates. So it was kind of weird because I was living in the US, but when I was living here in the house, like we were obviously like speaking Turkish and all that stuff. So it prevented me from eliminating my accent a little bit.
Yeah.
And then I worked, and then I did this and that and this. And then over time, like you pick up those mannerisms.
Yeah, so for you, was that the goal to speak clear English, or was it just for you? I'm sure it was just to speak English at first, right?
Right.
Like when you first started? Because did you know English when you moved over here?
Yes,
you
I did. Yeah,
okay.
I did.
From
like,
Turkey?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
I mean, I passed the test, like, because you have to have certain level of English if you want to come here to enroll in a college.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You have to pass some tests.
Yeah.
And like my speaking wasn't that bad, but it was strictly more academic level, you know, like you learn how to speak very academically, like very formal.
Yeah.
So you don't know those like informal gestures, like you good, like stuff like that.
The slangs.
You know? Yeah.
Slangs.
Especially the slang. Yeah. They don't teach any slang, right? So it took me a minute to get those out of the way, but once like you live through the day-to-day life, you got better at it.
Yeah, you pick up on it, right? Yeah, you pick up
And on average, like a native speaker knows 10,000 words in their language, but you need only 500 words to communicate on day-to-day basis, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
so that's like 20 times
right
difference. But even with 500 words, you can start your day at 6 a.m. and end at 10 p.m. whatever,
Sure.
and you still have like good morning, goodbye, how can I help you, please, thanks, you know, all that stuff. You can just have a valid conversation with 500 words. But natives, they tend to have 10,000 words in their whole lexicon, like their vocabulary. So it makes it a bit more difficult.
Especially when people like us, we shoot the shit. That's another slang, right? Like that people don't understand, like shoot the shit, bust each other's balls, like those terms.
Yeah.
It's more like of a slang, like aphorisms and analogies and all that stuff. That's where it starts getting confusing.
Right.
If you haven't been around like that kind of crowd, you haven't been able to pick it up.
Right.
But I do get what you're saying. That's a great point. With the basics.
Right.
That's what it is. It's like the basics, right? Like hello, good morning, good night. Yeah, if you can just use simple sentences, which we probably should be doing anyway, because I think that's from what I listened from, you know, those tutorials of how to articulate better. Yeah, just use basic language. Don't try to sound smart. Too often people try to sound too smart and they don't even know what they're talking about.
Right.
Like Naval Ravikant said, this business guy, it's like, it's scaffolding. It's kind of like they're trying to stack words on top of words, and they don't even know what they're talking about, but they're trying to sound smart, you know, just to signal that they're intelligent, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's not a good thing, because you want to speak basically and concise and clearly, right?
Yeah.
So everyone can understand what you're trying to say. If you're just throwing like a bunch of lingo that no one understands, then people are going to be like, ugh, well, what's this guy talking about?
Yeah, no, for sure. The past 12 episodes, if I learned one thing about language, is just to be direct. Just say what you're going to say, right? Like, even if it's in the most, like, simple way, just say it.
Right.
Just practice saying it. But going back to, like, my story, so we had a talk. I was trying to convince her to do, like, Instagram, right? Because she's already had a pretty big Instagram following before, when she lived out in California. Okay. And I was like, well, dude, you have experience. And she wanted to do like lifestyle videos, or, you know, like a fashion videos where she's, you know, putting on something, and then, yeah. And I was like, dude, yeah, try doing voiceovers with that. But that's my whole point, is that I think because she speaks in a native language, I think she's kind of shy over that. But I was like, dude, that'll gain you actually more. People will love you more for that than, you know, if you spoke straight English, I think, you know, because they don't think it's like, wow, look at this girl. Like, that's great that, you know, she knows her language. It's just a second language. She speaks so eloquently. And the thing about that is, so what I was trying to get with that is that you don't have to be like a fluid speaker, right? Like your sentences are nice and smooth. It can be a little bit cut off. It could be like Spanglish, I guess you could say. But there's a way to just articulate your thoughts. It's about articulating your thoughts to what you want to say instead of like having it flow. You get what I'm saying?
Right. And I think there's a interesting thing to think, like, just talk about here, because I feel like when we're born, we don't know anything, and we don't give a F about anything, right? Because we don't know anything.
Yeah.
So from ages like, let's say 6 months to like 12 years old or whatever, we're just like here to absorb things and fail and all that stuff. But once you get to the primary school and then the secondary school, high school, whatever, you start to like think that people care about you. Like your actions matter so much and stuff like that. So it's like, I don't want to fail. This sounds awful and all that stuff. And then after age like what, 50, 60, whatever, so you go to a commercial gym, whatever, you're gonna see a lot of old dudes naked because they don't give a F, right? So I think like from ages 12 to like, let's say 40 or whatever, you actually think like people care, but no one cares. Like I was at the pool yesterday and you're dancing, like people are watching and people are like, oh, you guys are having fun and all that stuff. I mean, like people sit there and they're just like watching each other. Like what the hell? Like these people don't care about you. You're probably never going to see them again. So why not have fun? Like that is a crazy thing in my mind. And I don't mind like failing, doing silly things sometimes and whatever.
If that's like related to language, because we kind of moved topics, but it's okay.
Yeah.
I was like, we're talking about language and then,
Right.
But last thing I'll say about like the language thing, and I 100% agree with you, which I want to elaborate on too. But with the language thing, relating to that is that, yeah, like if you have a cut off, if you're learning English and your English is a little bit cut off a little bit and, you know, you have like a thick accent, no one cares and no one's going to make fun of you for that. You know, they might have a hard time understanding, like because of the language barrier, but no one's going to make fun of you for that. Number one, it's that it's fucking rude, first of all.
Right.
Number two is that, now going to the topic that you went, is that everyone just cares about themselves. No one really cares about you, right? So relating to that, that's another one, is that I was telling her that no one really cares. You know, when you start like social media and stuff like that, you feel like everyone's looking at you because it's like theory of mind. You think everyone's judging you and looking at it from your perspective. It's like, oh, yeah, I get it. You're looking through it through your lens. And it's your Instagram. It's what you're putting out there. It's you, and which is called default mode network. By the way, is that when you think about yourself too much, right? You're too in your head. That's what they mean when they say you're too in your head.
Right.
That's exactly what that means. Is that it's the default mode network going to work. That's why, and this isn't coming from me. It's coming from the guy, Healthy Gamer Gigi, that I listened to, the Harvard psychiatrist. He was saying that when your default mode network goes haywire, which means you're thinking about yourself too much, that's when real depression comes in. Because you're thinking about yourself too much. It's like, oh my goodness, did I fuck up on this? Am I doing this right? Oh, I'm not ever gonna amount to anything. Guess what you're thinking about? Yourself, right? Yeah. Instead of like having to be like, well, that's out of my control. Right. You know what I mean? So again, going back to that, it's just, I was trying to convince her. I was like, yeah, just do it, you know, because regardless, no one cares. No one cares about how you're going to sound. The other thing is, leading off to another topic, is like perfectionism, right? That's a big one. Yeah. I'm highly at fault at it, for sure. It took me a very long time. It takes me a very long time to do a lot of things, you know, like good things, things that take over time, things that are good for you, good behaviors. They take a long time for me to develop.
Good habits.
Yeah, it's just, I'm a late bloomer, man. You know what I mean?
Right. Better late than never, though, you know?
Better late than never, yeah, for sure. But, you know, there's a fight. Like, sometimes it gets discouraging because, like the GOAT says, Alex Hermosi. Everything takes time. And that's why I think a lot of people fail during their endeavors. What they're trying to reach for is because they can't wait for that, they haven't developed the skill of delayed gratification, right? I'm at fault at that. I'm like, oh my God. Even doing this podcast, you know, you'll get like a comment here or two about, oh, dude, I listen to your podcast and stuff, which not a lot of people are listening. You know, and sometimes I'm sure people are just trying to make you feel good. You know, keep rooting for you, and that's great. That's great. You know, thank you for that. But after that, after a compliment or two, you know, after you get that validation, it goes away fairly quickly.
Very fast. Yeah.
It's like someone telling you, like, damn, dude, like, you look good. You go to the gym. You'd think it's like, yeah, it's great. Thank you, you know, but that doesn't last very long. Yeah. That feeling doesn't last very long. It's like, yeah, I go to the gym because you live and breathe it, right? Pretty much. Right. So you can't.
That's your lifestyle at that point.
Yeah. It's not like, oh, yeah, thank you.
Of course.
Yeah, of course. Of course. Yeah, you'll get like a little bit of it. You'll be like, okay, cool. You know, that's nice of him or her to say. Right. But you move on fairly quickly. And then you get something negative. Oh, you can't stop fucking thinking about it, man. It's that negative bias, you know?
Interesting, yeah. But we're like programmed to like think about the negatives, right? Like our mind works like that.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, for sure. It's
you can count like 5 things that going negatively in your life, then think about 5 things that are positive that going on.
It's a survival mechanism.
Yeah, that's how our brains work.
Yeah, from our last podcast, that's why you should think about the problems, right? And think about even this. You can't even think about, when you think about like why you can't do something or why your relationship is shit or whatever, just do the reverse of that. Just do the reverse. Right. And then it'll probably have an immediate impact on what you're trying to do. Be like, well, you know, like, I'm sure you could think of something off the bat. Right. Like doing this podcast, okay, I'll talk about one of mine. It's like every time I do a podcast, I'm like, fuck. Not that I don't want to talk to people. It's just, damn, there's a lot to set up. You have to like, you know, anticipate the day. You're kind of nervous, honestly, even though you've done it multiple times. Right. For me, it's like sparring, honestly.
Yeah, it is.
It's like, and that's probably why we do it.
Right.
But it's almost the anxiety, and never goes away, and even the laziness almost. Dude, sometimes when Saturdays come in sparring, I'm like, fuck.
Yeah,
I don't want to do it.
I don't want to do this.
I don't want to do it.
But
and then that's what gets me to go. I'm like, I don't want to do it. Oh, that's why I got to go, because I don't want to do it. Right?
But after sparring, how well do you feel? You feel great, right? Because you did something that you said you were going to do, and that's the best feeling.
Even with this podcast today, like, you know, when I was saying, like, let's do 2 of them, oh my God, that thought just made me cringe. I'm like, because I already know what's coming. That's more time to edit. More. It's just a lot more. It's time, and that's your most valuable resource.
Currency,
yeah, it's time. Like, that's what. But if you think about it, what else would I rather be? What would I be doing rather than this? Right. This is the fucking goal. Right. This is it. Right. Like. I remember when me and you sat down to talk about this, doing this podcast at the Starbucks, which was crazy because time flies by. That was like 3 months ago, 2.5 months, 3 months ago.
Yeah, I know.
And I remember like it was yesterday. Like, all this shit happened fairly quickly, right?
Right.
We're now 13 episodes deep.
Yeah.
And yeah, man, it was just, now we're going into 2 episodes, and like I was saying, it was like, fuck, I gotta set these lights up. I gotta book guests. You know what I mean? We have to time things out. There's just a lot going on. And then you have to time it out where it's convenient for the other person to get to the studio. But I really, really want to make it work. Yeah. And
scheduling, right? Like, you have to like have a tight schedule. Like
everything, exactly. It's like some people, it doesn't work on Thursdays, which is usually when we do these things, right? Like you sometimes. Right. A lot of people, they can't work on Thursday. So yeah, there's playing with that a little bit, right? You have to be really, really flexible. And you're willing to have to clear a lot of your stuff to do it, to do the schedules. So it's a pretty big hassle, but it's a hassle that it's worth paying. Yeah, worth paying for. Right. Yeah. But yeah, man, I was just thinking about that a lot, like the perfectionism thing. So again, my friend was talking about it, and she was like, yeah, you know, I was like, dude, she was showing me like this video that she made, and it was really good. You know, I was like, what the fuck, just post it. She's like, nah, this is the problem, this is the problem. Yeah. Listen, man. For anyone doing this YouTube thing, and I'm not the one going, you know, that's an expert at this. I'm new to this too. But from what I've learned from here on out, is that we plan to do over how many episodes? You know, we just talked about like it was 20 episodes to reach the top 1%.
Right.
Listen, man, I already know when we reach 20 episodes, there's no turning back. There's no turning back. Like you've reached, it's a big milestone. It really is. After I heard that statistic from
the GOAT.
the GOAT. But after I heard that statistic, it gives you more of a motivation to like keep going because why quit now? You've already reached that point. So I think when you can't see the light at the end of the tunnel, I think it's good to remind yourself of like milestones and markers that you've reached.
Right.
Yeah. But
I would say it's not easy, but it's not hard either. So
depends how you look at it, right? It depends how you look at it. Ultimately, your why is going to determine like why are you doing it, man?
Because I want to create. Like I don't want to consume. I want to create. Like that's the
that's another problem, man. I caught myself like creating, but then I'm kind of fighting with myself just because I don't watch Netflix or anything. I watch like YouTube's my entertainment, educational videos and tutorials and like content creators that are supposedly good for you. But I catch myself like watching. I'm just sitting there in a loop watching 5-6 hours of it, and I'm like, wait, I should be working on something else. Hence, again, that's why I decided to create. I want to create a newsletter, right? To kind of grow whatever we're doing here and to keep myself accountable. Honestly, that's the number one priority. It's almost like, wait a minute, man, you told yourself you were going to write a newsletter, and since I already write, that can parlay and up my skills and do good for the business at the same time. Yeah. I know we were going to talk about another thing, but this is a great topic. Yeah, but yeah, it's interesting, man. It's interesting. See, and so also, I'm just telling Erim this now, but you know, like figuring out. So what's really going on here? Full disclosure is that, like, Erim is my co-host. I consider him a very, very good friend, right? And what we need to do, since you know the studio's here and I do a lot of the editing, we're trying to outsource a lot of the stuff. You know, like have parts. You know, like divisions. I think that's where I'm starting to go now with like businesses and stuff like that. But since you're like my main guy, and I'm saying this to kind of teach myself too, I think it's a good way. I was just listening to, you know, our boy Alex, and that's what he was saying. If you want to remember something, do like an instructional to yourself with a podcast or write it down, right? You know what I mean? Or content create so that it's feedback to you that you're keeping track of it. That's how you keep track. Right. It's almost like writing. How are you going to keep track of your thoughts? Well, write them down. They're on paper. Yeah. So anyway, so since you're like my main guy, it's like I'm going to outsource something like an integral part to you. And then like I said, I have like my graphic designer, the girl that just did the logo and stuff like that. So now it's almost like I'm starting to see a lot of things that I haven't seen if I wasn't doing this. You know what I mean? So I guess the point would be is just like with perfectionism, just start because you're never going to figure things out. You're never going to think your way through a problem, right? Or to get better at a problem.
But when a rocket is going to space, like it wastes the most fuel at the initial launch. And then it gradually spends less and less and less and less, and then they hit the space, and then at that point you're already there. So
that's my favorite. That's my favorite analogy, I think, because if anyone has started anything worth doing to them, fuck, it's so hard, dude. It's so hard. Even till this day, like I started lifting, got really consistent at that. Martial arts got really consistent to that. But every domain is specific, meaning everything that you do is way different, right? It's good that you could carry the consistency of skill over to whatever new that you're doing, but it doesn't take away from the fact that fucking starting is still hard. It's so hard. It takes every bit of ounce of you. It takes every bit of ounce of me to wake up to go to martial arts, honestly. I'm like,
you don't feel like it, but
but I make it. All the time, all the fucking time. My hit rate, except if I'm like sick or if I have an emergency or something, is 100 out of 100. Like it's kind of crazy to think about. I'm active every day. That's not a gloat, but it's every day I have those thoughts. I'm talking about every day.
Right.
And it's just kind of like, oh fuck, if you look back on it, I can't help but be proud of myself. It's like, wait, that's crazy. I think about that every day and still make it.
I mean, that's how we started, right? At Syndicate. We met each other at Syndicate.
Yeah.
Until like a year ago or whatever, when you first cornered me at USMTO, at this point, like 2 years ago, we haven't seen each other outside the gym that often.
Yeah.
But then, like, we went to events, all that stuff, yada, yada, yada. Now we started this podcast. So that's that consistency that lead us into this.
Yeah,
right
I
now.
think so. I think there's also something like I was telling you before, regardless of like situations, there's you just know, like, a good judge of character, right? Like, we know we're easy to work with. You know, we're kind of on like a good, I think, trajectory. You know, when it comes to that, we're both aware that we have a lot of things to work on.
Yes,
but
of course.
ultimately, we do want to work on our goals to like improve ourselves. So I think that's really
And
good.
how you do anything is how you do everything. Like, I do 100% believe that. Even though, like, the job or whatever that you're doing doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, let's say you work at a Subway, cutting sandwiches or whatever. But if you have that mindset that I'm going to be making the best sandwiches or something, then that's going to improve your life drastically, right?
Yeah.
So every time that I do something, I'm trying to do the best as I can. Like, I have that mindset. So when we do this, like, I'm trying to be as articulate, you know, like better at it.
Yeah,
basically.
It's see, with some people, including me too, man. I sometimes I get caught up is that the metrics, you can't see it, right? Like the skill that you're talking about, like working hard, say at a job that you're a starter job, maybe at a Subway or something like that. You can't see like the payoff. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I know what you're saying about like work ethic and all that stuff, but there's no like, oh, you've reached like 50 plus skills, like a video game, right? So it's almost like you kind of got to gamify it, and you almost just have to trust yourself that you're becoming the person that you want to be. Like, you're growing. Yeah. So,
yeah.
So what's up, man? What else is new? What else did you want to get off your chest, my friend?
What I wanted to talk about today is the relationships, like the aspect of the male-female dynamic, actually. That's what I wanted to talk about.
Sure.
Like, most of the time when relationship starts, obviously there's this honeymoon phase that you want to spend a lot of time with your significant other. But in that time, most people become clingy, needy, whatever, and then they got separated. You know, I think that's a major difference of, if you want to have a good relationship, you have to have two things, very important. Like, I think that's the pinnacle of every relationship: loyalty and honesty. Like, those are the two things that I value the most, because if those two do not exist, then there's not going to be any relationship. Even though long-term, short-term, the time frame doesn't matter. That's what I say to my partners. Like, don't let me find out, because if I find out, that's a different ball game. Tell me, just tell me.
Okay.
And being jealous is the worst feeling. But being protective, like, I do get it, like, because I'm a protective person myself. But jealousy is a different ball game. Like, if you're being jealous, then that's kind of an insecurity thing.
Yeah, well, it's also a normal emotion,
Yeah.
if you think about it. The problem is, it's the worst emotion, because
No fun in
envy,
it.
that goes along with envy, right? Envy and jealousy, they go hand in hand. They're probably the worst emotions to have, because they're probably the most useless emotions to have. They don't do anything.
Anything, yeah.
It just makes you, it just drives you fucking crazy, and it stresses you out.
Yeah.
Like, at least with anger, sadness, it's trying to tell you something other than you're an insecure little bitch.
Right. Yeah, you can use that anger to better yourself. Like, if you're going through a bad breakup or whatever, you can use that sadness or whatever as fuel. I mean, is it going to last forever? No, obviously not. But then that can help you establish those healthy habits that can create your next lifestyle that's going to better yourself.
I 100% agree. I was talking to Nas about that as like one of my ending monologues, and I was saying that if you, whatever you do, whatever your motivation is to start something, like if you want to go work out, if you just like broke up with your girlfriend, this is like the easiest example. If you just broke up with your girlfriend and you're really, really hurt, or she broke up with you, she dumped you and shit, just go to the gym because like, yeah, I want to show her up, you know, like I want to show her what she lost, or maybe you want to date again. Whatever your motive is, nothing is too petty for you to get motivated to go do something good in your life.
Right.
You see, even if it's like for a reason that's probably unsustainable, it's kind of, yeah, what are you going to show her up for the rest of your life and make her think that she like missed out? Yeah. No, but you will, by the time that you realize and get over it, because you'll have the habits to be able to be like, oh, I just like working out. I just like exercising. Right? And it could be the biggest life changer of your life. So I guess hope is a big driver, right? Hope is a really big driver.
Right.
Because to, like what you were saying about relationships, again, I'm going to use the example of like heartbreak and stuff. Because if two people break up and then say, just for example, the guy is hoping to get back with his ex or his girlfriend that just broke up with him, it's almost like... it's a fuel. Yeah. It's a fuel that you use, and you're taking that energy. Regardless of how like irrational it is. Do you get what I'm saying?
Right.
It's kind of like, well, she already moved on, but you still have that hope. It may be a false sense of hope, so you can't operate on it very long, but it's still hope that's like carrying you through and putting that energy on something else. So I 100% agree with it. Yeah. That's also in the book Think Rich, Grow Rich. It's like
Napoleon Hill, right?
Yeah, turning sexual transmutation. I'm not talking about that kind of I'm talking about like, yeah, but it is the going along those drive, lines. Though. It's the drive. It's not even just about heartbreaks. It's about like if someone loves you or something like that, you'll do it for them, right? If you're trying to date a girl that you're like obsessed with, yeah, you'll do it for them. Like you have that drive. Guys, man, and if we're talking about like an evolutionary sense, guys are willing to do anything to like meet the criteria of the girl that they're trying to like date or sleep with or get married to. They're willing to meet that criteria. That's why girls set the standard for what, like, that's why they're the gatekeepers, right? Yeah. Because they set the standard. They set the standard for what the relationship's going to be. So if she doesn't have very low standards, like if you just take her out and, you know, like, guys are willing to meet those standards wherever they are. Whatever the girl's standard is, right. If you're attracted to her, most likely they're willing to meet that standard. It's kind of like, oh, wait, I need to take you out to a fancy restaurant? Okay, fuck, I'll do that. Yeah. Or I need to, I don't know, fucking, like, just do the most fucking crazy shit for you, then I'll do that.
Dude, a fancy restaurant is the worst place to take a girl for a first date. 100%.
How come, man? How come? Why do you say that?
Dude, do you want to invest $200 in a girl that you don't know? Like, I would never do that.
Well, I would argue that, man, because
I like coffee dates or bowling dates or pool or going to the bar, have a few drinks, get to know each other better without any prior like expectation.
So do I, but I agree with like coffee dates and stuff like that, but for different reasons. Listen, the fancy dinners, right? As long as you have the resources to do them,
yeah, of course, like
then it's okay. Because ultimately...
But is that the girl that you want to attract at the end of the day, who likes you for your money?
True, but then that doesn't have anything to do with money, if you think about it now, right? Because say if you set the standard, which, like, if I take out... this is just personally for me, but if I take a girl out, right, I'm going to choose where we go to dinner.
Of course, yeah.
Right? That's just because part of it is kind of like, oh, you want to... show her the fact that you have good taste, you know. Number two, yeah, you know, there's that impress factor, right? You're trying to wow her a little bit, but mostly it's because I want to eat there. Yeah, you know, and I get it. From time to time, I like to, like, kind of splurge because I don't do it very often. Honestly, I don't really care about food. You know what I mean? Like as far as where I eat and stuff, like I'll cook eggs and Spam at home or something and be all right.
You're Filipino, so
yeah, exactly. But that's what I'm trying to say is that to me, nowadays I don't really think about that, right? Even honestly, if like when I used to go on like dating apps and stuff like that, I'd be like, hey, you want to go to like a semi like it was like a semi nice restaurant, right? It was like you were probably gonna spend like probably $200 or $300 or something like that. And I don't really care because first of all, like if the date doesn't work out, it is what it is. I had dinner.
You had a good experience?
Yeah, so that's what I mean by like it depends how you think about it. Yeah, if you're scrunging up like every quarter that you have to like take her on this date, and there's an expectation for her to like reciprocate that, because that's another thing, my friend.
Right.
That's reciprocation. Instead, that's being an Indian giver.
Oh, yeah.
Is what they call it, quote unquote. Sorry, I'm not trying to be. It's not like racist or anything, but it's just the term. But yeah. If you're expecting something back for that dinner, but no, I mean, I just like to have nice dinners. I like to show off a little bit sometimes. You know what I mean?
Right.
If she's like really like the one I'm attracted to,
Right.
I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. But going back to what you were saying, I do get what you're saying about like coffee dates and stuff like that. So check this out, all right? I'm going to tell you a story. I'm glad we went here because I'm going to tell you a story what happened with the boys after jiu-jitsu. There's this guy, Josh, right? I'm going to have him on the podcast, actually.
Okay.
And he's like a power lifter. He went to Syndicate when we first started going, and then he kind of quit for a little bit, and now he's back. And, yeah, we've been, like, kicking it. The boys, Ezekiel, me, him, you know, after jiu-jitsu, just shooting the shits. He's like, hey, man, I meant to ask you. This is fucking hilarious. He was like, I meant to ask you, man, do you go to Samba Latte a lot on Jones and 215? I'm like, yeah, I do. He was like, yeah, I see you over there all the time. And you could tell he was kind of holding back on something. I was like, yeah. So I just broke the ice. I was like, yeah, I bring all my dates there. And then he was like, dude, I was like, that's what I was about to say. You're always with some, like, I don't discriminate, but he was like, you're always with some, like, white girl at the same spot, at the same seat, at the same, like, outside, because they have an outside patio.
Right.
And, yeah, I think coffee dates are good because... yeah, it's a good way to like get to know someone without, but on both parties though, not just the guy paying for dinner.
Both ways,
yeah, both parties. It's a good exit, right? Yeah, there's not a lot of investment, and I think it's a good way to talk to someone. The drink thing, the going out with like asking for a girl to drinks and stuff. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah,
but I think I've talked to some women that. Initially, they kind of don't like it because they kind of know what you're trying to do. Of course, right? Yeah. Like I talked to this girl. Actually, I tried to actually. I was talking to this girl, and that's what she told me. You know, just she was like some cocktail waitress at a bar, and I was just asking her, "Hey, what?" Me and my friends are talking, and we would agree that my friend. She says that she would like to get taken out to a fine dining restaurant on her first day because she's bougie. Right. But then I was like, what about you? So I asked her, right? And she was like, well, I don't really like the bars just because, you know. She
works at a bar? Like
that and
practically?
What I just said about, well, yeah, I don't know if they're trying to get to know me, you know, or if they're just trying to get me drunk. And yes, girls have to be careful.
Of course.
Especially on a first date, right? Going to a bar, you
can get real feed, like anything can happen, right?
Yeah, anything could happen. And yeah, absolutely. And I was like, okay. And then I was like, what would you say then? She was like, nothing too fancy, you know, like a yard house or something, something like that.
Yeah, that's valid.
And I was like, oh, okay, cool. So would you like to go to a yard house? Yeah. I thought that was fucking slick. Right. But yeah, so going back to my point, it's, I think nowadays, I don't know if it's an age thing, man. I don't think so. It's probably just what you prefer. But I would prefer to get coffee and just have like a conversation with them. Maybe see if you connect. Maybe see how the conversation.
An hour, 2 hour commitment, nothing too big. Like not 4 or 5 hour commitment.
Depends, right? Yeah. Depends. If you're fucking getting along, then what the fuck? Like you could talk. You could sit there forever. You know, and then you could just set up the next date.
Right. I like shooting pool too, like pool dates, like going to a pool.
Yeah.
Bar or something like that.
Yeah. You usually know on a date though if they like you or not, right? Like the first date, you kind of know.
The vibes are there, right?
The vibes are there. You don't have to like beg for a second date. You shouldn't even beg for a second date. But
yes, of course not.
Yeah, you should just you just know. Like you just know. Like halfway through the conversation, if there's like nothing there. I've had that before too.
Right.
It's like, and I've even forced like a second date, meaning like, oh, so do you want to like go out? And I think she was just bored,
Right.
and she was like, all right, fuck it, you know. And the second day it just didn't go.
Right. And the more approaches that you make, like the more dates that you go to, the more people that you talk to, you get less needy, obviously, because you know there's like different people that you can connect with. Even if it doesn't work for this one girl, because most people, they date this person for like 5-6 months, whatever, and then they break up and they go through a depression, whatever, that phase. But if you have a good social interactions with people on a day-to-day basis, actually, then you're not even going to feel a depression era, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, for sure, man. And dude, I've been doing this shit for a long time. Like I've been single for a while, right? And that's like it's like, I know I'm not an expert at dating. I'm not like giving anyone unsolicited like advice what they should be doing. I only know how I do it.
Right.
But I've been dating, like I've gone on, I'd say plenty of dates by now. I'm not saying I'm even good at it, but bro, like, first of all, yeah, it takes a lot of energy. All right,
of course,
that's
yeah.
number one. It takes a lot of energy, and I know, I get it. I'm a guy. You know what I mean? Like, I want to have fun too, and yeah, it's nice to date at first, but then ultimately, like, you want to find that connection.
Right.
So where I was getting with that is that how you find that connection, right? It's almost like, yeah, you want a connection, but wait, hold on. Why don't you back it up and take the baby steps to actually get that? Well, how do you do that? So going back to your topic, how would you say you do that? Like, for me, and remember Dr. Robert Glover, that No More Mr. Nice Guy thing?
Right,
I think
right,
he
right.
landed. Like, I think it was my philosophy before I even heard of this, but dude, just be playful.
Yeah.
And you know how you be playful though, even before that, is to be good with your life. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because it'll just like fucking radiate out of you instead of having to fake it. Like, just be playful with everyone.
Yeah.
I'd be fucking joking around with everyone. Girls are no different.
Of course,
When
yeah.
I fucking roast their ass.
Yeah,
you
you
know what
gotta.
I'm saying? When
Yeah.
I make fun of them, like, they're
Right.
no different from the guys I fucking roast, like at the gym and shit.
Right.
I say the same shit. I fucking tease them and stuff like that. And like, I said this like fucking analogy before. I was like, dude, technically, I was having a conversation with my coworker. It's almost like technically when we're talking, like, this is gonna sound really off, but then when you're like having camaraderie with your boys and shit, you're initially like flirting with each other. I know that's like a terrible thing. Like, that's
it
like
doesn't have to be sexual though, right?
exactly,
You know?
yeah.
It can be platonic.
Technically, you're fucking flirting with them. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and then enter the opposite sex. Oh yeah, what do you think you're fucking doing?
Yeah,
you know
same
what I mean?
shit.
You're negging them. You're teasing them. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
you're making fun of them, and then you're kind of like, oh, I'm just joking. You know what I mean? That's how you're fucking talking to a girl.
Right. If you're walking on eggshells next to a girl, then that's gonna, like, this guy clearly has no spine. Like, he doesn't want to, you know, he can't stand his ground, and that's not a good place. You have to be playful, banter.
Playful is like,
Yeah.
I think playful is like one of the most important priorities, hands down. You know what I
Right.
mean? First of all, a lot comes with being playful. It comes with being funny. It becomes with not being boring, right? You have loads of character.
Right.
Like, you don't have to show your fucking bravado, like your fucking how masculine you are. Like, if you're playful, man, that's probably the one criteria that will get you really, really far when it comes to dating and trying to find that connection.
Right.
Right.
I do agree, 100%.
Yeah, and I also, before we end that topic, I also heard this thing from the School of Life, the psychology channel. It was saying that everyone should just be good flirts, because what you're really doing when you're flirting with a woman is that you're actually letting her know, despite of her imperfections, that you still like her. You like those imperfections about her.
Right.
See? That's why everyone should be good flirts, right? I also heard this one thing where, kind of relating to that, but you should also, if you can't roast each other, then we can't be friends.
Yeah, that is facts.
It's facts. Because you need a certain level of trust in each other. Like, I need to be a certain vulnerable with you, something that you could use back against me for me to trust you.
Right.
And for you to be able to, like, kind of snap back. You know what I mean? That's how people bond.
Right.
So I thought that was like a really, really good philosophy to live by.
I agree.
But yeah. All right, man.
All right.
Well, fucking A, episode 13 in
Like
the
a number?
books. Yeah, I think that was really, really good, very insightful. We talked about a little bit about, perfectionism and all that stuff, and just get started like we always do, because I think it's very important, because that is the hardest part, essentially. And a little bit about dating, which is our goal, right? Like this is the mission, to make men and women better at whatever they're trying to do, whether it's dating, relationships, their craft, their job, their money, whatever it is. Because we are also still trying to work at it, and we are right there with you. So,
Agreed.
all right.
Good episode.